Can't find.
Why do you just say yes? Because I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, Lucero. Oh wait, Lucero left. Never mind.
Leader, what do we do?
Hey, what's up? Hi, I'm here.
Hi.
Widow's that great on this map.
Yeah, that works. That works. No, I guess I should be Zenyatta. Not really this map, yeah.
Some
Do
people
you play Lucio at all, Boldo?
Nope.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Okay. Let's start off with team comps here on Li Zhang. So dive doesn't actually have a lot of space to work with. You, at least on this map, these like ceilings will prevent the Winston jumps from really getting you away, or really giving you a lot of distance. Your best bet for Winston jumps are to jump up and down on here, but your team can't like sit here for long periods of time. So you can send like one person up here, but it's not like, to give an example, on Oasis, where the high ground is like is not essentially a choke point. If that makes sense. Like the high ground here isn't too strong. You can leap maybe back to the mega, that might be a good point, but like there's plenty of cover to just kind of like line of sight people there, and they will eventually just kind of force you to point. And by taking the high ground, you're forced to play via a path that prevents you from contesting the point at the start. So like you lose the positioning, essentially, to achieve a position that's not great. So Winston D.Va on this map is not very strong. To make matters worse, I guess they're running dive. They have one person you're really looking forward to jump, but with how the ceilings and just like your jump trajectories on this map, like D.Va can get to him maybe. If you're running Tracer, she could maybe flank. Genji can do it, but it's going to require setup. But like Winston can't reliably get on this individual if the tanks are taking any space whatsoever. And then they have a ton of peel for him. You can run dive here. I think it's rough into this composition, but let's see how it goes. Instead, people are just running like triple tank or goats or something like this. Some way to beat like the death ball mirror.
Alright, let's go.
He looks fun, but
Yeah.
confusing.
It's a little confusing.
Alright, so you guys probably actually just want to play straight on to point. If they're running any sort of death ball, they're going to be looking to like take this space first. And what you as dive want to do is take a whole bunch of separate angles. Like maybe, so if they are set up with their Rhine shield like here, then what you guys can do is have the Genji over here. You can have your Zen back on point high ground maybe. You can have your Winston, excuse me, give me your Winston play close, and then he can like retreat up to Mercy up here, and if they try to push in, you have like Mercy, Hanzo just kind of chilling here, firing down, free firing at them. So like this choke only kind of like limits your options. You're going to run out of DM before they run out of shield, and then Junkrat spam is going to take you all in this hallway. So that's something you need to watch out for.
The problem is wall riding.
Just go bait. I guess straight to point. Okay.
Yeah, straight to point
they
seems
went
fine.
left side.
So we kind of commit to a dive when we don't really need to. So we took the space first on point. If I could back up a little bit. I won't let me. Let's just back up 5 seconds.
Yeah, they went left side.
So we took the space immediately. We jump in on basically nothing. Like, they're not out of position. They're incredibly grouped up. They have all of their cooldowns. The only thing that they don't have is maybe like half a Reinhardt's health, but he has 3 healers and presumably a bubble to like prevent you particularly just Winston from bursting him down. Like, the only thing that bursts him down is, like, a discorded headshot from Hanzo, and if he's holding shield up, that'll never happen. Well, taking this positioning and jumping up to here can be fine. It might have been better just to, like, walk there, because they're not really pressuring you, and that way you can use your leap to leave when they try to, like, stun you and shit. But based on this opening, I actually think you lose this fight. Like, you went to point, which is good, but if you're going to commit and try to fight in a small room, they're just going to overwhelm you. Like, you're not trying to get kills, you're trying to control the point, essentially. And you have 14 seconds where you don't even have to be on the point. You can just slowly try to wear them down from separate angles, because this is a finite resource, and if Brigitte isn't firing or isn't, like, landing flail shots, like, she's ineffective, and Junkrat's projectile is easily dodgeable if you're paying attention, in any sort of capacity. Double check to make sure my scene is on correct. Okay. So really, like, the long range kind of benefits you, and, like, the longer the fight goes, you should be okay, so long as the Brigitte and the Moira aren't getting nuts value, or the Reinhardt. So jumping right in there kind of just plays right into his strengths. We drop a bubble because we're committed. If the Reinhardt's just not swinging on us, the Brig is just starting to swing on us. But, like, here's kind of the problem. There's a second time bomb here and Moira ultimate. Once that happens, their tanks are just kind of free to go about their business. And she's going to get it real fast.
Ryan's low.
Reinhardt's super low. Ryan's mega low.
Mega low.
I got way too much healing in there.
Yeah.
Alright. So now, when the fight actually matters, we don't have cooldowns, and they have Moira ult. So now the point is unlocked, and we kind of burned a lot to get here. Where are we? Here's the Junkrat. This is our Diva, who's out of mech. Yeah, we lost mech. That's really bad.
Discord Junkrat, okay.
Okay, we
Reinhardt,
traded. Here
Discord?
comes the Moira. This should not be winnable unless Nat lands a
Zarya's
bunch
in
of
our
shots.
team right now. Oh.
Ryan's low.
Yep, there it is.
Alright, Zarya person.
So, like, if they trade players with you, that's good for them, in a sense. Because they'll have the higher sustain. They have a couple characters that, like, have both sustain and damage, essentially. So you have either, like, meat shields or damage or healers. Like, this is the only hybrid you really have. Well, they have someone who can do both here or both here. You know? Or Zen as well. Like, they have offensive and defensive capabilities, and you lost your Diva, like, right away.
Personal down.
But yeah, they're just gonna take this over.
Oh shit, I'm in a corner. This is bad.
It took them longer than I thought.
Oh, there.
Oh, heal behind.
They're running
Just
triple
got-
healer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this might not work.
So we used our dragon in a vain attempt to try
Right,
to
triple heal.
get, like, a quad kill with it.
That might work.
Should've just saved that.
It's gonna be rough with the shields though.
So against a composition like one they're running, and goats in general, their range damage is really weak. They really require getting their tanks and the Brigitte on top of you in order to really accomplish their goal. Otherwise, their only threat is, like, a fire strike, maybe some orbs, and maybe, like, Junkrat spam. And if this is Diva instead of Junkrat, then, you know, their range damage and their poke phase is even worse. Which in that case, they should be running Lucio. Excuse me. So, like, good ultimates against a composition like that are giant AoE, like Fire ult, like Junkrat Tire, like Hanzo ult, in order to either split their team and prevent them from acting as a cohesive unit, or to inflict so much damage that you kind of overwhelm this. So what I would do here, if we're fixated on running dive, Diva doesn't do too much. Diva only pretty much eats, like, a Moira orb, which honestly should be casted for heals and be hard to eat anyway, or Junkrat spam. She's not really too effective at bullying the front line, considering the armor that's going to happen here in a second, and just how many tanks there are and ways of keeping them up they have. You could run something like triple DPS here. You could drop the D.Va for like a Pharah, something that plays away from their team, something that has a large AoE ultimate and has very high damage to get through armor. Or you can say, we run this composition better than you guys run that composition, so let's just swap into it, which is what a lot of teams opt to do on this point at least, because the map doesn't lend itself very well to Pharah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, let's try going
it's hard to take the point as Pharah, is what I'll say.
left.
It's never rough with the shields.
And I think the
There they are.
best thing is if we coordinate DPS.
You're gonna get
and
tired
tanks
here.
on Target.
Yeah, we need to just get on.
Yeah.
There, one of
We're
their shields.
positioning, we're still in poke. It bothers me a little bit that both your DPS right now can be shielded from the same angle. If Genji had committed to taking the high ground, they don't have anyone who can go up there besides maybe Junkrat. And if you're trading Junkrat's attention for your Genji, I think that's a fine trade. Particularly if, in order for the Junkrat to survive, they need to commit healing resources specifically to him. That should be fine, and then your Hanzo is free to do what he wants. They're in a pickle in that they don't have a way to force a fight right now. Best they can do is Junkrat ultimate or try to build a tank ultimate, but like they can't be like, oh, this guy's out of position, let's rush him. You know, they don't have the Lucio for that or the mobility for that, and that's like your one advantage right now. So you can play a whole bunch of different
They'll
angles.
just all go in on one of them.
So that shield here doesn't really do anything. What you can, I mean, the shield in general doesn't do too much, but like, tank should be looking to play up a little bit while DPS are playing alternate angles and try to coordinate on someone. If a DPS gets one of their backlines low, then the tanks can maybe then commit to an attack.
Alright, Junkrat's
it's
on
rough.
high ground.
Get him then.
We got
Let's get
Zen
him.
back there on the far
We're
back.
just waiting.
Yeah, let's push all the way around far left. Like, oh, okay.
There's the tire.
Ciao
There's
for
the Mercy down. There's the
Alright,
D-Mac.
we're down Mercy. Alright, that's...
You're down one.
Heals remain healed, but they have more.
I have my ult. Zen's low.
Ooh, that's really bad. Okay. So we're down one. Half the team seems to be retreating. We're down 1.5, we'll say, because we're down mech as well. Everyone's retreating, except for our Winston. So if they didn't have the ult advantage before, they're going to collect 500 health from our Winston, and then he ults to give them another
Ciao for
Another 1K.
Alright, we're down Mercy. Alright, that's...
Heals remain healed, but they have more.
I have my ult.
Yeah, so that's like 1,300, 1,400 worth of ult charge going away. Their Junkrat picks it up, and he's close to his another tire. That's awful. If this will feed them tank ults essentially,
Zen's low.
and their tank ults are significantly better than yours.
we probably didn't need that there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Alright, back out, back out, back out.
Let you realize the mistake. I think this is mostly a compositional issue. The execution required to pull off dive against this composition on this map in particular is very high.
I guess we'll Valk and then if... yeah.
And then I'll switch out after Valk.
Yeah. If we have
Yeah.
time. Was kind of why
So the thing about King of the Hill, and I realize I'm pausing a lot, is that ult economy is super important. If you realize that your composition doesn't mesh well against theirs, then you need to recognize that as soon as possible and correct it. Or you're kind of stuck in this position where, like, if you lose this fight, you're going to lose it with like 80% left on the clock. You're going to have a rush, maybe staggered fight coming in. And if you're switching, in addition to that, you're losing all the ult charge you have, so you're automatically putting yourself at disadvantage. King of the Hill, if you lose every fight, you get like 3, maybe 4 fights if you're quick. It might take a fight or 2, or maybe even 3 if you're like Zarya and you're getting bad energy to even build up to your first ultimate.
I
So
trailed off.
you have to be
I think
really
Push
careful.
left here.
Left
That
side.
Ryan
They are a
has
little split.
ults.
I don't mind Nathan's positioning here. I
the
think that's
Ryan.
fine. But like, we don't want to go anywhere near this tunnel at all. We can avoid it. But she is out of position. We could kill her. There we go.
Oh boy.
Alright,
We'll
that's
lose our
Ricky.
mech.
Ryan's low, Discord Ryan.
Behind you. Seems to be some miscommunication where the Rhine is. We have the Rhine discorded. He is grotesquely out of position. He's at 1 health, and we're just kind of not on him. This is the issue with dive, or teams that try to run dive, is that your focus fire needs to be on point in order to make it effective, particularly against a high healing composition like this. This is why like the execution is so high. You have to have the comms and coordination to recognize who is actually vulnerable and whom everyone can hit. Meanwhile, they just have to like beat on someone with a flail, and it's really, really difficult to overcome if that focus fire isn't there. So like this didn't need to happen.
That still hit me.
Thankfully, not much
Ugh.
happened since then, but you lost your Winston for it.
I couldn't keep you up out there, man.
So we blow
Got Loki
res.
back.
Alright, let's try
We
to.
got this.
Oh, shit. Okay, I gotta.
Bomo gets zeroed out. But like, we came in here with 4 ultimates. We haven't used one yet. We need to take this fight.
You have to go in.
I'll be back. We have 5 ults.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, we're just burning cooldowns and time. The Rhine has come back from death. And we still haven't crossed like this threshold here. You can take a 5v5, especially if you think you have some sort of ult advantage. Now you run the risk of just getting grabbed and never touching the point. We lost Onizuka on the side, which is unfortunate. It's really hard to contest the Junkrat. If you're in a narrow hallway like that anyway. If your goal was to set up on the flank, there might have been better ways to go. But really, it's just a whole bunch of inaction. We saw it after the first lost fight. We saw it second fight, and we're seeing it now. It's just kind of like people are waiting for other people to make the move.
Alright, let's go.
Are we gonna
Shit on
touch? Oh, we barely touched that.
that. What? Okay, my game just minimized itself.
It's fine. Looks like you guys are gonna win this on the back of ultimates and a nice graviton eat.
Finish
Zarya
as well.
is Zarya could basically
Right.
still carry this if you're not careful.
Ryan's
Zarya
down.
personal down. Zarya
She's
Discord.
at least gonna be halfway to her next one.
Hey,
Zarya's down.
it only took 4 or 5 ultimates.
Yeah.
Took a
It's
lot.
okay. I killed 2 of them.
Dragon.
Yeah, but you won the fight.
That's fantastic.
I was stuck in a Junkrat trap, so I just shot him while he was ulting.
That's
Well, there you go.
hilarious.
Healing, man. They have so much healing. It's ridiculous.
So yeah, I'm kind of curious where you guys are supposed to play. With your Hanzo setting up on the Mega here, setting up on point seems fine. You could have someone sitting up here, like one of your tanks, so they drop down and then can retreat back when necessary. Getting scouting information is good. Long poke lines are good. They're gonna mostly avoid it by coming in here, and then I think they're just gonna come main or come from White Room. It's their best bet. If they come from mini, maybe they have more issues with different angles. They're coming main, that's fine. I see we set up on a crossfire here, seems fine. We use Winston Bubble prematurely. Winston Bubble is not used for blocking damage really all that often. It's really used for blocking cooldowns and committing to space. So using it preemptively like this, yeah, you're not going to get hit too much, but you have like a mercy pocketing you. What's more dangerous to you is like these Junkrat mines. I guess this is kind of a bad example, considering their team comp. They don't have a lot of cooldowns that you can actually block. But like if you're up against an Ana, or you don't care if she's hitting you with her shots. You care if she's hitting you with her sleep or her nade. Same with Diva. You don't care about her shots as much as her rockets, and it's her abilities or like Roadhog's hook that you really want to block. You know. Maybe that's a bad example.
Man, they do a lot of damage.
Yeah, they do a lot of damage.
All right, dive the back line.
Okay. Ooh, let's rewatch this. So right now, we have position on point 10 seconds ago. We have position on point, we have control of point. They have one tank ultimate. And we know that, and we have Blade. We don't really need to engage, we just need to contest for as long as possible, build this control percentage, and wait for either Hanzo or Genji to get a pick on the backside, essentially. And then maybe we can collapse upon it. We don't really need to hard engage here. If we are going to hard engage, it needs to be communicated early. So I notice our Genji blading, but the first one to react to it is boat mode saying we're diving now. There wasn't like a discussion, there wasn't a countdown, there wasn't a communication on who we're on. It's just, it's almost like you're casting. It's a commentary, a play-by-play, rather than an analysis of what we're looking to do in the coming moments. So right now, boat mode's positioning is way in the fucking back. It's not bad. Maybe up with Hanzo would be preferred. In that, if a Mega fall back to you, you have much better sight lines, and you're close enough where you can actually like land shots. If they play like on this side of point, boat mode is forced to kind of like just walk up. It could be kind of rough. So like boat mode's positioning isn't. I mean, he's safe, but he's like too safe. He runs the risk of not being effective from that range.
Man, they do a lot of damage.
I'm gonna ult.
Like, we call we're gonna ult, but like, it's so quiet I didn't even hear it the first time. And there's no one here to assist you. So the issue is, if they just turn on you right now, you're in a lot of trouble. Voldo is also actually in a lot of trouble here. He's like forced to stay with the Winston, in some sense. But like, he's putting himself in danger to do so. He can basically force his tanks to like play on this side of the point. He can sit high ground once again with like the Hanzo, and they can just kind of retreat to
All right,
him
dive
and
the
back
back line.
forth.
Ah, shit! I stepped in a trap.
Yeah, you see how like it took like a second for your diva to react, and then your Winston tries to come in.
Oh no.
Everyone's gonna die.
You done me?
The only way you win this is if Valdo gets like a nice res, but you're already down your diva mech. You're down one of your DPS. He has to go for this res. Thankfully, they don't see him. We lose the other tank in the process.
Popping out.
Yeah, you're forced to pop ult. One who's coming back is May.
Yeah.
Oh,
We just got that.
Well, I figured we're
Alright, Bowman need to end in a wrong spot.
not gonna get a recontest after this, so.
Yeah, that was a good ultimate. No one's
Yeah, I'm
complaining about
stuck.
that.
And we.
Yeah, so you lose this.
Alright.
A lot of healing.
Okay.
Like start transitioning.
I'm not even sure if transitioning is right. I think it's just
wait, is this the right?
This is just something if they don't have any.
If we're gonna go
Fuck,
far, yeah, we should be
Oh.
flexible here. But
Okay. So we are running on the Zen with Farah on this point. The Ana is untraditional. We're running 2 long-range DPS against their essentially full dive. So let's go into some theory about compositions for a second. If there are 3 phases of the fight. There's approach. 1, 2, 3. Versus approach. Approach is all about who has positioning or priority. In King of the Hill maps, in particular, a lot of the approach comes down to how the map is set up. Compositions naturally have an advantage over each other, but the map can change how relevant those advantages are. Like if on the previous point, a long-range character like Farah, or a spam character like Brigitte is really effective because by the time you see your opponent, you're really close to them. It's an easy way to put it. Widowmaker has to maneuver much more difficultly in order to find a proper sightline, and it's arguably not worth it because she's only able to come from such limited things. So like having heavy long range poke on control center isn't as valuable as it is here, where the sightlines are massive, the skybox is massive, the entire opening point is like wide open. So to that end, Ana can really work. The problem is that she is also really immobile, and doesn't pocket far well, who's also really good, and can be zeroed out very heavily. She doesn't pocket Zen well, is kind of her issue. Lucio and Mercy both do that peeling job much better, while also having other additional advantages. So that's kind of the reason why Ana's not here. But we're back onto the approach phase. So particularly between two dive comps, and this can change in like a between death ball comps. There's the approach phase, then there's initiation, and I'll just say initiation, and then there's cleanup. So approach phase is when teams are essentially poking at each other, trying to whittle them down, but they're not hard committing or burning any important cooldowns on the fight. They're merely looking to get in chip damage and to dictate the pace of the coming engagement. Initiation is usually when the tanks finally clash, either by committing cooldowns or just by naturally creeping towards each other. And then cleanup is after initiation, when the fight is devolved and people are starting to actually drop. And so your goal in cleanup phase is to kill people before their important cooldowns come back, or before they build an ultimate that would turn the fight in their favor. For that reason, it's important to call out cooldowns like Roadhog Breather. You don't want to get a second breather in a fight if you can help it. You don't want to get multiple hooks in a fight if you can help it. You don't want multiple Ana nades or sleep darts affecting the fight. You don't want multiple Mei ice blocks stalling the point. Target focus in the cleanup phase is very, very important, and most people will do it for initiation pretty well and have an understanding of who should be the focus to start with or in the initial engagement, but they fail to continually do it because they're not keeping track of cooldowns or positioning as the fight devolves. Okay? So why is approach important? Well, between two shield compositions, what dictates who is forced into an aggressive stance is by which team generally has a more shield break. You see it on King's Row, where if you're running like a McCree Widow into like a Junkrat Hanzo, the McCree Widow, the Reinhardt on the double hit scan team will have less shield health, everything else being equal, and will be forced slowly off a point because he can't stand there. If he's the aggressing team, he's forced to take his approach more slowly in order to conserve shield, or he has to like all in and commit immediately, which is why Goat's composition, which doesn't have a tremendous amount of shield break or amount of range, they suck at the approach phase. They're looking to entirely just skip one and get straight to two. And they do that by utilizing Lucio's speed boost. Meanwhile, a composition that instead just has Reinhardt and then 3 pokey spam DPSs is looking to maximize it. Comps that are good against Goats, like Junkrat Pharah Widow, with like maybe a Winston or a high ground Orisa, just straight up looking to spam and make the approach phase as miserable as possible between halts, between boops, between long range spam around just angles, not even really aiming for people, between off angle headshots. So that's the approach phase in Death Ball. Now for dive compositions, what's important there instead of shield break, it's long range poke, which is not quite the same thing always. McCree is not very good at ranged shield damage, but he's more than adequate at ranged poke, if that makes sense. So like if a Winston is in the open without a shield, then McCree's fine. McCree will damage him just fine. The same will not be said about a Reinhardt slowly approaching, necessarily. So the difference between two dive comps and how they are able to set up number one here will dictate which team needs to jump the other first. So look at these compositions and tell me which team has the better poke phase. And the answer is clearly this one, right? You guys are running a Pharah, you're running a Hanzo, two long-range spam projectile characters, and they are forced to run Tracer Genji. Now Genji has some minimal spam, but it's not hitting at the same degree at either of your DPS, and is generally harder to land at these long ranges, unless you're just spamming around a corner and hoping to hit someone by just, spamming. The Tracer has to get really close. In fact, in order for their team comp to be effective, these guys are going to have to get really, really close to you. So, what should you guys be doing here? Since you have the better poke phase, the sooner you realize it, you get to notice that you guys should be looking to do more of a counter dive strategy rather than diving yourself necessarily. So what I mean is, your tanks should be taking space without using their shifts. And when your back line eventually pressures them to dive, since you have the higher damage at range, you can then use your cooldowns to either jump back to peel for your Ana, for your Zen, for your Hanzo, or you can then make the decision to jump their backline, who is now completely vulnerable. And you can essentially trade Zens. What's the issue with this? The issue with these long-range poke compositions, particularly Pharah, is that the poke needs time, essentially, to take effect. You do not have the greatest map control, and it's in the opening fight, you really do have to wait for the Pharah or the Hanzo to start getting poke in order to really solidify a position. Otherwise, you're just going to be slowly forced back because their damage is readily available as soon as they get in range, as soon as their tanks get in range, mind you. And for that reason, these like longer range comps have a lot of issues retaking a point against teams that are better off playing against the angles. So what I'd like to see you do is walk up here, wait for them to dive, and then kill whomever is diving you. This might be a little bit of an issue because the Ana and Zen are both very, very diveable and have trouble peeling for each other. So I suspect that even if you do this, you end up losing your backline very heavily, and that might actually cost you the fight. But Pharah should be generally uncontested, and depending on where Not in plays, he can also be really difficult to find.
This is a popular Farm Mercy map, so.
This is a very popular Farm Mercy map. Yep.
Oh, we have a Mercy. Alright,
Alright, they use their shield.
Go far, yeah, we should have stayed on.
Cool. So we do some cool things. Ana is right now pretty vulnerable. Also, Zen is vulnerable. They use their shield already, which means they're going to eat a shit ton of poke. Their Mercy is low. This could actually be a trigger for us to dive if we really wanted to commit. But it needs to be communicated from Oni that she has landed a direct on the target, or someone has landed a shot on the Mercy and the Mercy can die. But our tanks are doing the right thing. They walked up, they took position. Really, though, they should be not worrying about gesturing to point just yet. They can just kind of play around this area. And the reason for that is that this pillar thing will act as natural cover for you. It's also a direct line of sight. Like, instead of playing at an off angle, you can actually just play at the angle that your team is spamming and acting as like a bodyguard for that instead of a bouncer to point. The longer you play in the courtyard, the better for the Pharah, better for the Hanzo. They wouldn't mind taking it inside a little bit. And if you move too far into point, you run the risk of not being able to follow up on the Pharah's damage, who's naturally going to be outside. But like, you guys should win this just from this initial thing. Their Mercy's 1, if you can communicate that, she dies. Then the Zen has no peel, he dies. And your poke has essentially taken effect, and you guys played this well.
Oh, sorry.
Someone's really
Mercy
low.
down.
Nice.
That's right, they were purple.
Huge anti, trigger for the dive.
Get
Let's
the Zen.
go.
Zen next, then
So he's noticed we were split. One person jumped in immediately on it. Our Winston is not following up on it. I think he's shooting someone else, but like, there's no communication of the target.
Monkeys.
There it
Really low
goes.
back line.
It's delayed. We get the point. Cool. We end up losing Ana.
Zen next.
What
Oh,
happened?
Yeah, Mercy. Already.
Oh, if we were gonna go far, yeah, we should have stayed on
Baldo.
Mercy.
There you are.
Oops, sorry.
Someone's really
Baldo gets really too
low.
close here.
Nice.
That's
There it
right,
is.
they were purple.
Get the Zen.
Zen
Seems
next.
safe
then.
on point, and the Tracer gets
Monkeys.
Monkey.
Really low back line.
Yeah, there's no reason for Ana to be moving that far forward. He can sit back with the back line and just be just safe. Be peelable, not be alone.
Alright, they're out.
But that was
Sounds
otherwise
on
generally
point.
well played.
Yeah.
Yeah, get
We have a
him.
Mercy now. So they still have the issue where they still need to commit because your poke is better. And they're forced to come to point. But now your backline is much safer.
Oh, this juicy old charge.
At some point we have to worry about where Natin is going to play. So like the enemy team doesn't want to go white room. They don't want to come through Mega here. Or Mini here. They don't want to come this way because the fire spam is very easy to land when you're down a very narrow hallway. Similarly, not Junkrat ultimate, excuse me. Hanzo ultimate or Diva Bomb can be really effective in there should they build it in time. They are still dive. They still want to hit from multiple angles. They just have to do it faster than you do because you have both the space and the heroes to get the long range spam up. But you can see like they're trying to counteract it with a hit scan to force the Pharah back to give something to the poke war. It's not just, or it shouldn't just be a reaction to the Pharah. It should be we need something to return fire so we're not just literally eating it until we get within 10 meters, you know? We need to give some back and make them, we need to take space from them with poke more than just our cooldowns. So they're in a kind of a pickle here. A good option would be Widowmaker because she can contest this composition from any range and there's no flanker to really keep her oppressed for a while. But they went with McCree, which is okay, especially since the changes. But you guys should take this fight pretty easily if you play it right, as long as Natin doesn't get eaten. Yeah. So DK Chaos, I'm noticing you're eating just random spam. There's no need for that. Save it for an important thing. Like if the Tracer realizes you're out of Matrix and he goes for boat mode right now, you don't have the cooldown to protect him from getting one clipped, and that's kind of an issue. So like they want to come bridge and they want to send Tracer this way. And they want to pincer on preferably boat mode. Boat mode should be playing either back here with availability to Mega or it can line of sight in the building. And Mercy can just like look down at him and heal him if he needs. Playing on point itself is dangerous for this reason. And it's just he has no real path of retreat. And here also provides some spam lines.
They're going left side.
I hear.
Tracer's behind you.
We can dive their backline here if Winston you hear.
Tracer's
Oh,
behind.
maybe not.
Backside.
Okay. So
Tracer's behind. Tracer's
needs-
Discord half on me. Tracer recall down.
seems fine. So what you like, you actually don't need to cross this threshold whatsoever. There's no like. I realize you were kind of up a person, so you might want to regress. But with the Tracer tying up 3 people in the backline, you're not actually it's not advantageous for you to push in here. You're not advantaged to push in here. And you have control of the point. You don't really need to be aggressive. Your comp doesn't dictate you need to be aggressive because your poke is still better than theirs, kind of. You can kind of just like sit out of line of sight, peek your head out, come back, make sure they aren't taking space for free. Because like if you go in here alone, drop bubble, and they burst you, this ceiling is going to prevent you from really retreating back to where you want to. You can sit here. You can also sit just like on the other side of point. like cross the barrier that's runs down the center. Just wait for your spam to come through, wait for them to deal with the tracer behind. This team is not going to do anything right now, but like we need to back up a little.
Tracer no recall still.
But like look how much damage we have. So there's still a tracer in our back line is kind of the issue. And so we have two people vying for resources. Whoever the tracer is shooting and now our Winston. And so there is a window here, however small, for them to actually do something. Now our Hanzo ult, maybe it's a little premature, but it's a good thinking of like prevent this from happening.
Discord. She's half.
And we can aggress with it. Like if you'd wait for them to actually come in the hallway, then it would have been really bad for them. But it seems fine. Or Winston should just like die, essentially.
Ooh. Thank you for the
Oh,
heal.
you still got out of mech there? Ah, damn it. I thought Trans would have saved you, man.
Oh.
Still. Discord. She's half.
So yeah, it's not easy to see where Rondo is looking.
Oh.
Oh!
Yeah, so Boat's issue here is that this ult works as line of sight and he just stays in the bubble, so he never heals. He's actually not healing either of his tanks right now. And it's a miracle that they both don't drop. You see how he just stays in the bubble instead of actually being in line of sight?
Ah, damn it. I thought Trans would have saved you, man.
It could have. It very well could have. So right now we're playing too close. Boat needs to back the fuck up. He needs to play on the opposite side of point. Like, you need to make sure you are ending your trance in a position where you are safe. Spend the last half second, maybe even second, depending on the enemy composition, to just make sure you're alive. Zen is a huge integral part of the team, and you can't be playing in poor positioning. Same with Hanzo. So, like, you're already down a person right now. You can just play on your side of the point, like, which is this side, the far side that you guys are not on right now. Wait for your spam to kick back in and use that as your advantage. Even if you don't win the fight, you will force them to spend as many resources and walk the maximum amount of distance possible. And by that time they kill you all, maybe your diva comes back, stalls for longer, bam, you got this thing up to 99%, and you only need one fight of the next 3 in order to win this map. Okay? So you should play for this more than kills in some situations. Like, kills are great, but it's ultimately control percentage which wins the map.
Discord monkey tracer on me.
Alright, so we jump. Jump doesn't really do anything. We drop a shield to prevent nothing really. We could have just left, essentially. Kill the Winston, that's cool. Tracer just was low. We end up turning this. Their diva's back. Diva should be focused. Oh, see, the diva doesn't have cooldowns at all, and everyone's running from her. She's full health.
You
Diva
are
on
on point.
me.
Mercy's low, on point.
Alright, now they're playing
Get this
poorly.
Mercy, nice, good.
Zen.
And now we're in cleanup.
Got orb on you.
With you.
Discord's on him. Can we push that?
Yeah, nice
Very good. No, we got
to-
it. Oh, you're out of mech? Okay, that's fine.
Oh,
Good.
How
Zen.
does he end a mech?
Got orb on you.
With you.
Discord.
Oh, he doesn't. He leaves both healers line of sight. He isn't conscious of it.
It's on him.
Okay, in this instance, I would just eat the ultimate.
Can we push that?
Or-
Nice, very good.
or
No, we
just
got
jump
it.
off
Oh,
right
you're out of
now.
mech? Okay, that's fine.
Oh, yep.
That's fine, I can get it back
Oh.
pretty quick.
Yeah, I'll keep orb on you.
Alright, so they have a 5 ultimate push when you don't have mech. Just kind of.
Not that that's like
Well,
super.
scary.
yeah, no, actually, it's.
I'd be damage boosting the diva because getting her in mech is way more important than Onizuka building not his ultimate. Like, either you need to be boosting either boat mode here so he can build trance this fight, or diva so she can build
Not
mech.
actually a good idea.
Nothing else really matters
I can
unless
just stay into this doorway.
you're gonna get like a one shot on Tracer. Alright, boat mode, you're in a bad position right now, and I hope you realize that. You are within, like... Alright, you have Zen, and his orbs have 40 meters, so 40. I don't know how far a Winston jump is, honestly. But like Zen is all about controlling this within and outside 40-meter range. Ideally, you want to be close enough that you're able to contribute to your tanks, but not close enough that they can reach you in one mobility cooldown, particularly these two. Like if the Tracer goes all around and burns a bunch of blinks to get to you, like you're doing your job. So long as the Winston and the Diva can't just immediately shift onto you in maps and positions and situations where you have complete control over that, then like it's kind of, this is, if you die here, it's absolutely your fault. It's particularly because you don't have trance. You can't be playing this aggressive. Where could you be instead? Well, I see your Winston way over here with your Diva. You could be over there. You guys could have communicated where they're going. You could be rotating away from it. You could be backing up to where, like, back where Oni is. Be kind of just waiting on the Mega, essentially, for the fight to devolve, and then you come across Bridge, if you wanted to. But generally, like, over here would be good. If your tanks were playing up here, you could, yeah, easily be back here and just be fine. But as you are now, I think you just get jumped and killed. They don't even
Tracer
react.
right side.
Get the Mercy instead.
Oh, I got stuck. Sorry.
You got
Damn it.
stuck. It could have been literally anything. They used 2 ultimates to win this fight. 3
All
ultimates.
right, let them blow ults. We're at 99%. We should just lose this fight. Don't use ults. Or did we use them already?
That was a good call, Boat. It's too bad the team didn't realize it before you
We
called.
Yeah, sorry.
Alright. We should have just given them this one and then taken a fat, like...
We might as well commit, I guess.
Angry monkey.
Definitely. Discord
Yes,
on their
this
monkey,
is winnable.
nice. Okay.
Get the Diva.
Commit him all.
Genji, guess we're Genji.
Get the res off.
Mercy, 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 mercy. Alright, get this mercy, get this mercy.
Here in target calls.
Scored Winston.
What's the next one? Winston.
Scored Genji.
I don't want to hear just Discord Genji. I want to hear, like that's an information call. I want to hear a target call. Like, get on Genji. Genji dies. Genji dies.
Nice.
Something like that. Okay?
Good job.
That's it.
But you guys turned it with ultimates.
Alright.
Seems fine.
About him.
Yeah.
It was
Alright,
generally,
let's switch to
generally good.
Moira. Push straight to point, and let's try to be in their faces. I'm hoping to get a cheeky boop or something, but just get right on.
Oh,
Seems fine. Your Rhine is not here.
Oh, did we go split?
Your Rhine just never came out of
Push
spawn.
straight to point, and let's try to be in their faces. I'm hoping to get a cheeky boop or something, but
Okay. So you guys are split, but you're running goats on this map. Seems fine. It has its obvious weaknesses, but it's I'm not gonna say good. It's adequate. It's a perfectly acceptable decision. You guys have a good mindset for what to do with it. We're just gonna get to point. We're gonna hold on point. We're gonna force them to come to us, using the point as incentive, and then we're gonna kill them. Like, that seems great. You have a clear goal in mind and a means of executing it.
just get right on.
It's unfortunate that Urian isn't
Oh.
here right now.
Oh, did we go split?
Someone got left behind.
yeah, me.
Alright, it looks like they're all going main.
So unfortunately, your most important person. So you guys are going to play close. Seems fine. Bia is taking a shit ton of damage. So in this with these 2 compositions, regardless of the positioning, we're going to ignore everything but what's in the upper left and upper right now. You're on a time. This team is on a timer for when the Pharah goes off. Once that happens, it is, the longer this fight goes, the more uncontested the Pharah gets, and that can be a problem. Same to a degree with the Hanzo, but the Pharah is like the real big issue. You need to then coordinate amped speed boosts onto a target and kill them as quickly as possible to force them back. To the Pharah being a time bomb issue, Oni's primary goal is to prevent and make Pharah's life a living hell. You don't have to kill her. You just have to not let her take every space that she ever wants, ever. So let's see how we do that. We eat some of the spam.
Mine's one. Nice.
We get
Nice.
one instantly. We boost
Mercy's
up into the
exposed.
Pharah. That seems good. Okay. We could push in and collect the rest of the old charge if we wanted to. We're deciding to cap point. I don't necessarily think that's
Hanzo.
bad.
Oh, Hans. Oh, that was a lucky pick.
Was it?
And we don't have red. Nice.
Nice.
Was it
Mercy's
lucky?
exposed.
I'm gonna say no. You didn't really have anything else to worry about but Hanzo sidelines, and
Oh,
you kind of
Hans.
just
Oh, that was a lucky pick.
let
We
it
don't have
happen.
res For that. Okay, you're down a healer, guys. Careful.
Yeah,
Play
you
point.
can.
Play point.
Alright, so we're just gonna
We
play
don't really
point.
have the range anyway.
Right at home.
Seems fine. We're just line of sighting them. We don't need to burn any resources.
Spark's definitely gonna get.
Bia can start spamming damage orbs until they get closer.
We have a diva.
We're literally just looking to kind of like sit here against a wall until they come in, for the most part. There's the Hanzo playing at the same angle. Seems fine. Ryan should really be up here. We don't need to be using our shield. We can actually just sit behind a wall.
We also have
We're not looking to get into a poke fight with them.
lots of healing and lots.
That's
of
how they win.
so-
What the fuck is your Zarya doing out here? Get back.
Oh, I got booped out.
You didn't get booped out. You went out, and then you got punished with a
We
boop.
also have lots of healing.
Look
and
how
lots of
long you
so-
stay here, and then you get booped, and you should die for that.
Oh, I got booped out.
See that's like a misunderstanding. Boat mode is also like way in front when he doesn't need to be. Boat mode is risking his life unnecessarily. Boat mode can just stay back here and be perfectly safe. And actually coordinate the fight instead he's doing like wall ride bullshit.
You're gonna stare out through the window?
We go for a stun. He wasn't committing, so we can't actually leave here.
I can't go after her.
Yeah. Boat mode in general, you should. It's at about this point when our shield's about to break, and they're actually close enough. If they use a projected barrier on someone, or they use the self bubble, like if they use a projected barrier on someone, we kill the Rhine. We just amp speed boost into the Reinhardt and kill him. They're playing this really dangerously. And if they use self bubble, we kill the Zarya and then we kill the Rhine. Like the longer this fight goes, the more these ultimates are going to build up on the enemy team because they have the better poke. And so the correct play is to speed into the Rhine as soon, like maybe even through the projected barrier if you wanted to. My biggest concern is that they're going to turn it with a DPS ult and you're going to think it's the wrong play. But you can't just be sitting here.
I fall in front of her team.
Kill him. You're just waiting.
This Hanzo in the corner.
Yeah, you're getting percentage,
This one is ult.
but they're trading percentage for a guaranteed fight win in a second.
Ult has been wasted. Oh shoot.
Paris coming on
Shit.
point.
That's not good.
There it is.
Oh yeah.
Ah.
I tried.
Okay, that's gonna be gone. Stall as long as you can. Die on point.
It's well played by them.
Is that gone? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's- yeah,
back
that's
up.
fucking
Don't go on.
gone.
Don't go on. Don't go on. Wait for.
So now the problem is, you're running this composition, you're running goats, you burn your Moira hold, which is one of your bigger power spikes, but you do have 2 of your tank ults. Unfortunately, you don't have Diva Bomb with Grav, which is like your finishing move, or your main Grav combo, in essence. Your girl is still the same speed on the point, but now that you don't have control of the point, they get to play the long spam game where they just leave their DPS at off angles that can't be properly sped on, and you eat a shit ton of poke in the approach phase, and then their tanks just keep moving moving the fuck back. They never give you the engage you want. And they just minimally contest point as much as possible, wait for the Pharah to build even another barrage, and then crush you with it. Or they build Grav in the meantime from the same amount of poke, where they find an opportunity to shatter you. So this is going to be rough,
60-something%.
I'll have Grav
or
for this.
it should be
Okay.
rough.
We don't really have a good combo, so I'm just gonna use it at the first good opportunity.
That sounds good.
I'll try to stun them all.
So like if you get 2 in a grav, you're like fine with it.
All right.
Mine's a rapid roll.
All right. So I'm gonna amp us around corner, and we should
Should have already been talking about this.
just grab in their faces and start swinging.
It's too late. Like we are here essentially now ready to commit to a fight. We are grouped up, but we haven't discussed what we're doing yet. And then we're going to just linger in this choke as this explanation goes out.
The first good opportunity.
Okay, we just wait. We just wait. We just wait. We
All
just
right,
wait.
Rapid roll.
All right. So I'm
When do
gonna
we
amp
actually
us
start
around
this
corner, and we should just grab in their faces and start swinging and shit. All right.
Well, they're right here,
Alright.
anyways.
Oh, they're right here. Grab.
We lost 20 or 10%, 11%, just kind of waiting when we were already in position to do that, and we had an understanding that we were going to do that. We didn't call either of the projected barriers to actually commit to a fight. Grab seems good. We can win this. We can charge. If we can charge the fucking Zen out of the grab, that's fantastic. If we can just kill someone else by charging them, that seems good. But here's the counter. Here's all of their ultimates.
Oh no, no.
Oh my gosh! Everybody ulted. Me too, though.
I mean,
Get on point.
there we go.
On point.
The fire is going to carry this fight in a second. It's going to be a race to see
I
if they
am
use
so
both
low.
DPS ults. Alright. If they're good, they will not use either DPS ult.
Oh.
Comp isn't working.
Alright, this got way harder for you because they have both.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right,
That was really sloppy.
And switch it.
it was.
I figured my ult was gonna swing it there. All right, let's back out.
I think you lost your main source of DPS like immediately. You lose Diva and you lose your main healer. Yeah, this is gonna be fucking rough. If you are going to win the fight, it's gonna come off of Boatmode's ult, but like Reinhardt needs to live here.
Oh my gosh! Everybody ulted. Me too, though.
But no one he's hitting matters too much to them.
I mean,
Get on point.
there we go.
And the damage
On
focus
point.
isn't enough. So we lose it.
I figured my ult was gonna swing it there. All right, let's back out.
That's some coordination, that's some they had a bunch of ultimates. They have both DPS ultimates and Shatter. Like, their next fight should be one just off Barrage. And then the fight after that is the final fight that you're coming in staggered. And they'll just have 2 other
Not, you want to
ultimates.
try or Oni or not? You want to go head scan, and we'll go in.
It's too late.
Sure.
Just need to be discussed beforehand.
Okay.
You're only gonna get one fight now.
Let's try pushing right side.
What hit scan did you
Watch-
go? You want Widowmaker? Okay, that seems fine. You're fighting an uphill battle. You don't have a Mercy to pocket you while they have a Mercy, so you better hit that headshot.
Widow boot. What?
They got me. Okay.
You lost the Brig. Okay. Get a nice pin off.
Oh no.
But it's super fucking long, so we're gonna die from it, right?
All right, that's the Ryan.
Ryan's
No, the
down.
Moira ult
Push the
kills
point.
us. Okay. Move to point, move to
Push the
point. Here
point.
comes the
This is a
barrage.
really low mercy. Go.
There it is.
Go, go,
It's
go.
not great.
Uh,
Get someone. You might cap point, but you're gonna lose the fight.
Oh my god. All right,
This team wasn't together.
Kind of a dumb cap.
It's fine.
Coming back.
I'll survive as much as I can.
Unfortunately, it's gonna be really hard to get overtime. I'll have.
Yeah, so we lost that one.
Right?
Makes sense.
Yeah, they'd.
Yeah, I.
Eichenwald. Okay. So this fight, once we get a good perspective of it.
That seemed.
So this fight has a decent poke phase. Fire is really good on this map. Shield teams like to kind of hold here or back on point, depending. And so they have a lot of spam coming at you when you come through choke. And the main issue is like this distance from choke to crosswalk here is it's far enough that you're instead of speeding into them, you kind of speed away from them and then meet them over here somewhere. Even as dive, sometimes you use your first cooldown to just get in instead of diving onto them because the distance is just too good. But this giant pillar in the center here, this giant tower, really helps with Pharah. to mitigate such things as a Widowmaker,
I want to go Ryan
at
Zara.
least on first
I
point.
kind of want to run Orisa Hug again.
Alright.
Yeah, seems fine.
That seemed to be working for
You can
us.
run any of the tanks here.
That
Any of the
Reinhardt
tank
likes to
combinations.
walk with his shield up. Although he seems to be doing it less as the scrim progresses. So.
That comp.
Which,
What do we
Quartier?
actually settle on? 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. Actually, let's see where Orion puts his first shield.
Alright, they're on.
Okay, that's great. So this shield is easily circumvented, and team is not playing up with you at all. You can be forced to blow your fortify very kind of quickly. You like teams don't hold here. They unless they're doing like a May wall strat, I guess, with like Rhine. Otherwise, they're kind of holding here. I guess maybe if they're running goats on defense for some reason, they're running this, but. So one issue with your composition is that it's really weak to goats. The May is not bad, honestly, but like where you're likely to be playing, she won't be able to split up effectively. And she doesn't do too much to prevent them to rush you like a Junkrat spam would. It doesn't like really eat resources. You don't have that giant burst of damage to punish tanks. Like Widow can do it, but it's not as reliable. You get the initial pick here, that's great. They're coming in with something weird, like Pharah Mercy, and then they have two sort of like off supports on the ground, meaning the Reinhardt doesn't have a ton of healing. They also don't have speed, and they don't have range outside of Pharah, so if like the Widowmaker can keep the Pharah down, then like their composition is kind of forced to be your bitch in terms of like the poke phase.
Running Pharmacy.
So as long as you play that properly,
Woo!
you can eat a lot of time on this clock before they
There
build
you
ultimates.
go. That's the good one to get too.
Just get Res.
Alright, they shouldn't push up here.
No, but you guys are playing really far forward.
20 seconds, maybe? As to get. No.
There's Pharah. Like for some reason your May is way over here. She's back. And now it's kind of devolved. They kind of just walk in. And that's because we don't have a ton of damage. We have like some CC. We have a Widowmaker, but like we don't have anything that stops them in their tracks right now. The wall's bad, it doesn't separate them, but I don't think that's as much of an issue. It's going to come down to target focus here, and their comp is much easier to kind of execute on the target focus department. They're just going to keep swinging it until someone's dead. And the break heals are going to let them kind of sustain through it. So our goal right now should just be, well, they just use the projected and their self-shield. We either need to all be killing, like we need to get a Discord on a target and just kill that target. It doesn't matter who it is.
Got Zen.
Got one, cool. Got a hook on Zen.
Oh, Sarah.
Hook changed it. Work shield. They're pushing into us. That's bold.
Pressures, keep
Our
pressuring
wall's
shield.
bad again. They built
Oh,
shatter off that. Holy moly.
Got Zen.
I guess they're just swinging on both of our tanks. That makes sense. You should just die here.
Oh, Sarah.
You got a nice fire strike there.
Sarah.
Wow, okay.
Pressures, keep.
So this is kind of the cleanup phase that we messed up. They're down like 3 They were down 3. Now they're down 2 because they rezzed 1. So it's a 6v4. After it was a 6v3, and we just failed to clean this up before they built Shatter.
Keep
And
pressuring
now
shield.
they actually have a chance to win this.
Oh, that got me back here.
Oh, that's a white.
We lost it.
Yeah.
That's rough, man.
Shoot, miss. And I miss again. Hi.
I feel like this Reinhardt's first push is basically like either he gets his ult first push and uses it in our faces, or doesn't, and kind of falls apart.
Okay. So now we're on to second point. Orisa is not a very good second point. It might be able to work against this comp because you have a long range spam, but eventually you're going to have to contest the card, and that might prove problematic. I think dive tanks would work better. You could Rein Zarya here. Problem with Rein Zarya is that it doesn't affect the air matchup, but if you're comfortable just having your Widow be the one to control that, then it's fine.
You guys want to start slowly switching to dive?
That seems fine.
I'll delay them.
Okay, so if we are going to run the Orisa comp, we kind of want to hold as quickly as possible, because we want to leave the entire castle up for Widowmaker. We don't want to give them the chance to like contest her on high ground and then move around, all that shit. But more importantly, we want to limit the amount of places that Fire is shooting us from. If we play up on gate, it allows our Mei to wall them off. It also means that the Fire's only sightlines are like over this building or like over this gate. And it's really easy for the Widowmaker to just look at those 2 spots and keep an eye on them. Meanwhile, if you're instead fighting her here, she can like come up this way, she can come all the way this way, she can even come from like this high ground, and you just kind of like lose track of her movements that way. So by playing further up, you're limiting their DPS's
So I guess
approach
after, like,
options,
next fight, supercharger.
which is super important because
Switch
you
to,
actually have a hit scan to
Winston.
contest. So we're playing this corner instead.
For this fight.
It's not too much of an issue.
Because they have a Bridget.
They're
You can
coming
see
through
them
left side, through castle.
Coming high ground, we're going to be
They're going
forced
up
off.
Okay, they're down Zen.
And now we're split. So people on high ground are looking to leave and retreat back to their healers. Onizuka will probably get there. Your Orisa's dead. Orisa has nowhere to go. Unless, like, you can somehow bail them out.
They're on top. They're on
Jet
top.
and right coming across the bridge.
They're all up top on the bridge.
Natten will be able to generally get out. But, like,
Are they not? Orion, you're completely away from the team, dude. They're all behind us, man.
they're just not reacting to it. They're also just strangely enough not pushing the cart to do this. So they're not really getting as much value as they could.
Here.
And they're just slowly going to lose, I think, from
They
there.
scored their Pharah.
Oh, our Widow's down. Oh, okay, they might win this then.
Mercy's at 1.
Like, honestly, Fire still has,
She
like,
got
kind of the ability to carry the fight just from long-range spam. And, like, it's not even that they cleaned you up. But they've set themselves up in a position where you had to use 3 ultimates to repel them, and they used 1. So, like, even though they're the ones forced to retreat and they didn't get the payload distance that they were looking for, they have set up they've set up a future engagement to benefit them. So they're coming out on top but it's costing them like 30 seconds, you know? Mei ult is non-trivial in this matchup. Mei ult real good. Where are we playing?
And Zara might have her
D.Va on
ult,
high ground seems good.
along with the Pharaoh.
They're coming around. There's the Widow. Our Widow is
Oh, again.
dead.
Oh,
Careful.
dead.
I can't see you, dude.
Widow is dead. Kill the
Discord Pharah.
Widow.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh,
Oh. See how split we are now? Because we are not paying attention. We didn't notice the rotations. And Natten got jumped. So Nathan somehow made it out, but we're all getting shattered, and it's going to cost our Mercy our life. Our Orisa's not able to actually help us. That's kind of the problem.
Should.
I
not
can't
missing.
get to you guys at all.
So Orion will have the luxury of being the last to die if you lose this fight.
Alright,
Or
you're
at
all
least
back up.
super forced retreat.
Zen is just right
They're just not pushing payload. What is going on?
here. Scored Mercy.
They have a Zen, just leave the Zen on cart. Now D-Chaos is out of position. He'll be forced back as soon as their Pharah realizes.
Discord, Zarya.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Zarya
nice.
personal
Okay, nice.
down. Ah, shit.
There's Zarya spending too long to chase Valdo, and he could be just killing the rest of your team still payload.
That's what I needed trans for, but we would have wiped if I didn't use it. So.
D-Chaos. I don't think you get out here.
Alright, well,
Yeah, you should just die on payload here. This is just a stagger.
that's what I needed trans for, but
So if you just die on payload here, you guarantee that your team regroups in time for the next, and you have a good ultimate or two to actually retake this. That would be ideal. Instead, not only do you not get away, you're also not stalling payload at the same time. So it's like the worst of
we
all
would've wiped if I
possible
didn't use it. So.
scenarios. Like what you could have done is go down to like the mega here, grab that, and then come back up the stairwell if you wanted to. Maybe you thought your booster would be a little bit further. You could have also just like dipped up here and gone down. But in this position,
Alright, well,
you have a
Should've
problem
gone on
where,
cart, my bad.
and then you go to payload.
at this point, I
So
don't
that's
know.
good. That's good. Seems fine. They are just going to stall you. Alright.
I have my
So we don't actually need to be here yet, Orion.
ult. We can use it.
So our
to
team is not
go
here.
On the cart.
So now it's Orion's turn to stagger, and now suddenly you can't
No,
cast.
it's gone at this point now.
Or,
Now we used May ults. We're hard committing.
let's stop Zarya.
Oh, okay. Never.
Ooh.
We're not gonna stay around.
Oh, you don't want to do that. So if we're going to use the Diva Bomb, we need to at least launch it into the air, so it's a little bit unpredictable. We also should really be using it as a remeching tool here, because we're down essentially 2 people in this fight, maybe even a third. I think someone is still kind of caught coming back from spawn. So we kind of need this Diva Bomb to stall for as long as possible, instead of just
We're not gonna stay around.
this. Because we should just die here immediately.
Alright, that's gonna be gone.
Yeah, DKS stalling for time, seems
Alright, at
fine.
this point, I guess we'll just stay on the Orisa.
No, you should get off the Orisa.
I can switch back to hog gun.
I'm back.
This third point is very angular. You don't have the long spam lines, and there's a lot of cover for an approaching team. May is fine. Like Junkrat, Hanzo, Ryan Zarya, Mercy Zen are like the standard here. Like look how ineffective kind of this spam is, because they can just play around these pillars and shit. Or payload as it approaches. Orion's being forced further and further back. So like you're gonna kind of lose this fight, because even though you have spam tanks, you don't have spam DPS. Essentially, you need to get a good wall to win this fight, or get a good pick against a team that's hiding behind shield and cover. It's fucking difficult. Maybe your best bet is just kind of play it right here and get 2 fights in, but it's rough. You're just
This is
hoping
also
that the
pretty decent.
spam
Ryan,
wins
shield
it,
down.
but they have ultimates.
Discord Farah.
Oof.
They're on top of Chandelier. They're on top of Chandelier.
I don't have trends. Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
GG.
No, cart.
Yeah, okay. So by continually backing up, you made it into a 1-fight point, which they just waited for an opportunity and took it. I don't know what you're really supposed to do there, instead of maybe swap to a comp that deals better with theirs instead of remaining on this since point 1. comp that deals better with theirs, or figure out how to utilize the Mei, because the Mei honestly wasn't terribly effective there. We had like an ult or two that might have gotten value, but it wasn't coordinated with team. None of the walls did anything, none of the stall really did anything, and it wasn't super effective against the problem characters on their team. So maybe you swap Ryan Zarya knowing you're going to lose the first fight, but you take it real quick and you get another fight here before the end of it. But instead, the payload was pushing while we were dying, so we don't get to do that.
I guess I could play Brigitte. You don't need it quite as much on
Reinhardt in this comp.
Yeah,
Okay. So we are running mirror comps into ourselves. This is going to favor... This should favor the defenders because their defending Pharah should have better sort of spam lines for the most part. And the Reinhardt gets nice short pin opportunities on you as you come in. Oy. Kind of awkward.
okay.
Their composition is actually one I wouldn't mind taking, like the triple tank with Widow, like Orisa, Hog, Diva, Widow, Hanzo, Mercy with solo Mercy healing, forcing them back because they don't have anything but fire to contest you unless they want to speed into you, which is a really dangerous idea.
Back up, not and go, Widow.
There you go. Just immediately call off of it. Widow seems okay, and with the Widow controlling their fire, your fire will have spam against their team uncontested. But while we're swapping, we're burning resources here. It won't matter too much. But like, we don't even need to be like, we don't want to let their fire build ultimate, and that's kind of what we're allowing
Go
here.
left.
Team is
you're alone up
just
there,
not coming back.
Alright.
Good call, good call. Some situational awareness here. They already rotated. We'd love to take this fight. We're backing up now, but now our shield is like cracking, and that's kind of the thing. Now we just can't go in. We just have to wait. They're gonna play close now.
Yeah, let's push left room. Oh, they're
You have a good short pin. Just let the Ryan walk past you.
Alright, our shield's down.
Oh, we got murdered.
The Ryan's doing a much better job with shield management.
Toxic. True. But
alright, they're running triple heals again.
you notice how people, like, everyone is still poking while we're trying to slowly sort of regroup. They have more heroes to poke with right now who are alive, essentially. And they have the better sightlines. So I think they come out advantage, even though you have, like, the two better poke DPS.
Camping behind the buildings, I can't shoot her.
This Farrah keeps focusing me too.
Can you go around right side?
Oh wow.
Where is that?
That's not good.
I used my shield already.
Apparently not.
Holy shit.
Yes, we can. I get Shatter off.
Alright.
Oh, I don't want to lose my energy. Damn.
We need to find an opening here. And it's not coming through our tanks right now. Good.
They're down one.
Who?
Okay. Let's push up.
So the other fire is playing at off angle. That's really frustrating for us.
Let's go inside left here.
You don't really want to go into that room. You don't have good options of coming out. You're letting the Brigitte sort of dictate the pace. Your Widowmaker can't help you in there. Your Pharah can't help you in there. The room's not even that important. You have a Rhine in your backline just free swinging unpunished. It's partially because your DPS is kind of.
Oh, did we use? Yeah, we used both healer ults.
It's fine. You gotta win this fight.
Oh
No, they're gonna get another shatter. We built 2 in the time we built 1. That's rough.
Alright, we can,
That's fine. We're just gonna press Q and win.
Though.
It
Goal is
won't-
grab
It
barrage.
won't go through my ult if I'm
Grab
close
barrage,
enough,
grab
but
barrage.
I'd have to be
True.
pretty close.
Save bubble for it. Let's
Got
go,
Shredder.
boys. Get anyone in it.
A mercy.
Okay, that's their mercy.
Do we actually have confidence to push in now?
Alright. You in position, Farah?
All right, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
just.
Probably right.
No, you're not.
Yes, he's
Alright.
right.
Don't say yeah if you're not. Like,
Alright. You in position, Farah?
All right, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
just.
if he grabs right now, you're delayed.
Probably right.
Especially now that you failed your conk. Like, you will not be able to follow up on this grab, and this trance will actually save them for long enough.
Yes, he's
Alright.
right.
We just communicated we're going to use Grav. I understand you have an opportunity for Shatter, and I'm not saying you normally shouldn't take that opportunity to carry the fight that way, but it's disappointing that there was no communication. I'm going to Shatter. So we end up using both tech ultimates here. Now this can be mitigated by just like swapping dive next point, but we
Half.
Ooh, that was
absolutely have
very
no
nice
recourse if we
positioning,
lose this
man.
fight.
You got behind the Reinhardt and everything.
Yeah,
Woo!
that was a great shatter.
That was beautiful.
They didn't even get a chance to use
Yeah. So we use an
Should
extra
we
ultimate. We
transition
didn't
here?
end up shielding Onizuka, so he dies,
yeah,
but
you
it
guys
doesn't
want to go dive, I guess?
matter. It's just not like as it's great you won the fight. It's just not clean.
Yeah,
That
both
makes
tanks
sense.
are low. Let's switch to dive. DPS is fine. Healers are fine. Orion, switch to
Yeah.
Winston.
We should
Yeah,
be
they
pushing
still run their
payload though. Gates opening.
All right,
Got
that's
it.
fine. I'll
Yeah,
try to
they're
get
on
this
high
one on.
ground. They're on high ground.
We dropped the Pharah. Like Pharah is normally not that great on second point, but it's great against their comp. I would have kept it.
Okay,
Genji's gonna have a harder time.
just push card as much as you can.
Like the goal would be push cart, force them down. Tanks get the fuck out when they actually do drop. Let the Pharah take over, and let your Widow deal with their Pharah. And then
They're gonna
re-engage after 6 seconds of spam.
All right, and when we do, we're gonna dive something.
Oh, you don't need
Or
to
they're
do
gonna
shit.
give us
we're
free
fine.
card.
That's
Yeah,
it. We're
Reinhardt-
DK.
Boat mode, what are you doing? So Mercy right now is positioned well. Boat mode is going
Alright,
to
when we
follow
do, we're
like
gonna
the
dive something.
track of just the payload
Or they're
instead
gonna
of
give us
we're
free
fine.
card.
playing
That's
safe
it.
at
We're
all.
Reinhardt
DK.
jumped
Fell.
in.
Let's go.
Oh,
go,
right
go.
behind, right behind. Get this Reinhardt.
Wow, how
Far
are you
next,
alive?
far Discord. I'm down. Okay, you're down me.
You should really not be calling targets at this point, just have someone else call it.
Brigitte next, Brigitte next.
They res the Rhine because you guys aren't paying
Your
attention.
Reinhardt's up behind team.
Oh god.
And lack of, like,
Just
you
go
get
on
the
the
initial
Mercy.
2 picks and then you fail to carry this
Alright,
fight.
this is gone. Back up, back up. Far next, far Discord. I'm down. Okay, you're down me.
You're not
Brigitte next,
communicating or resing?
next. Their Reinhardt's up behind team.
We build trance a second,
God.
right?
Discord on their Mercy.
Okay.
Alright, this is gone. Back up, back
So
up.
what could we have done instead? We could have paid better attention to the Reinhardt who drops from the high ground, walks a couple feet, and then shatters.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Could have not
I
let the
thought we
res
had that one.
happen.
Alright. What are you doing up there?
Now they have a shit ton of ultimates. But they're not playing on high ground. If you can get the Genji to the high ground and the Widow to the high ground,
They're on the ground now.
basically everyone to the high ground,
I'll have my mech back in a couple seconds.
be fine.
Alright, let's go through castle.
Burning the shield here
Okay,
doesn't
we're
make any
too late now.
sense. You
Okay.
don't want to burn.
Orion, that's not really how you want to engage on attack with Winston.
Take high ground.
Oh no, that's not good. I can't
Take
use
high
my ult.
ground.
I mean, we can jump up
Alright,
to high
then.
ground, and then let me see.
Yeah, let's
what
go up
the-
high ground. Let's
Yeah,
go up high
I
ground.
like that.
Everybody go.
They only have the fire up here. Just bully the bully the 2 of them.
Where's their Zen?
Where's Widow?
Zen's in the far back.
Our Widow is
Alright,
way the fuck.
Try to jump Jen.
unable to see shit.
Discord Farah.
And now we're split, kind of. So we have 2 people shooting Pharah, neither of which are our Widowmaker, which isn't ideal. gonna waste a lot of time killing this Pharah if she has, well, she has armor, and if she gets another pocket, it's gonna be rough. Instead, the Widowmaker is shooting people on point. If he can get a headshot on, well, he can't he can't one-shot anyone except maybe the Mercy. That's down on point. So like the Winston's not doing anything right now. The Widow's not being terribly effective right now. The focus absolutely needs to be there when they have this much healing and this much armor. And this sort of ult advantage. We're not seeing it. Baldo should die for that. Bia should absolutely die for that.
Ah,
We've now given complete control of high ground back without actually gaining anything from it. So the Pharah just kills boat mode. That's unfortunate for him. I don't think he was positioned particularly poorly. I just think the team didn't execute the high ground this time.
Damn it.
Alright, release this.
Did
Okay, one more
everybody
fight.
come up the high ground? Like, what happened there?
We did, but the Pharah kept hitting us.
In that case, we just have to dive something and try to kill it
We-
faster than she's.
Not really. You can still take your time, but the Widow has to be effective in controlling her, and that's didn't happen. So the Widow started like back on the other side of gate when she used ult, and then like hooked up and played on like this high ground area, and wasn't actually able to see. If she had jumped up with you, it would have been like a 5v whatever. You could just drop bubble. The Pharah immediately has to back off, and she can control all that
I
space.
think everyone went to cart
Right,
and
we
then
gotta get
we
a
all
cart.
died.
So now we have a Tracer, which does nothing against this composition. They have so much armor and self-peel that the heroes that you would normally have an advantageous sort of position against, you don't have it anymore. And then like the Brigitte comes in, like this is the main issue for you right now. And this to an extent. And unfortunately, Tracer answers neither of them. It actually just harder commits you to a plan that has a low chance of working. Instead of swapping off the Widow, I would have preferred swapping this to a Pharah to run a Widow Pharah dive, and sort of flipping the poke advantage on its head, forcing them back by
We gotta touch
controlling
5
space.
seconds.
But we don't see that. There's no way you win this fight.
Oh, god damn it.
It's good trance.
Jeez,
We
they
ended
killed
in a
you
good
guys
position.
through that? Discord Pharah.
Okay, so you discard Pharah. Who, pray tell, is going to follow up on that Discord? Why is calling that Discord target good in this moment? And why are you, like, even if conveying that information was good, why is your decision to Discord that target good? She is the problem, but you have no one who can actually solo her out right now. Instead, if you had instead decided to Discord this guy and everyone focused this, that'd be great. If you had discorded like the Zarya who doesn't have bubble and everyone jumps her, that'd be great. But like this information and this decision to Discord the Pharah is fucking useless. It's not actionable. And that's the biggest issue with the comms. I'm hearing like so many things that actually don't matter. There's people calling out positions which can matter, but if you're just like someone's low and they're like over here or something, but there's nothing you can really do about it, you don't need to say it. Like it's just cluttering. If I hear an information call out that someone is half, I expect that like they're not going for a health pack, and if I find them, they will still generally be half or be eating up resources. It doesn't super matter to me that this person is discorded because nothing can be done about it.
Ah,
And it's a comms problem that I have a lot too. And it's something a lot of people need to work on. But yeah, you're just gonna slowly lose the fight from here.
oh, apparently not.
I thought I held it too long. Can't hold it with Reinhardt on the cart though.
No!
So that's close.
I got launched up too high.
Alright, so there were some sort of misunderstandings of like the map and how the map dictates compositions play. So with a strong high ground like Eichenwald, dive is very good, and when they're not running comps that can control high ground, feel free to do it and just dictate how the map is played. If they only have the Pharah and Mercy to support the Pharah to contest the high ground, if you go up there with every individual you have by using your mobility before they can rotate up there, their Pharah can't do anything. If you use your Widowmaker like a mortar, just plant her here, just bam, here she is. She's unmovable from here if you support her here. And from this position, we're going to dictate all of this space. When you play it like that, like if you can treat her as like the chess piece, like rook or queen that she is, and says this, we're just going to deny all the airspace surrounding this, then like what are they supposed to do? Instead we don't. Instead we control here, which lets us see like this airspace. So if the Pharah is playing back here, still gets spam and will generally force us off of this high ground because our Widow can't see her. And then once we're dropped down from here, she gets to just boost over here, kill our Pharah, kill people on the ground, kill our Widowmaker rather, kill people on the ground. It's just like lack of proper setup. Comms are still an issue. They're a little bit better. The plans are generally decent, but we're like taking too long to either realize them, convey them, or execute them. And we're wasting resources in doing it. We're not doing it like disciplined. There are a couple ult usages which are suspect. We lingered on an Arista comp that only really works first point for the entirety of, for a bunch of fights here on Eichenwald defense. Which is a little concerning, but I don't know. I generally liked the Lijiang maps that weren't control center. Thought that was good. Even one of the control center fights was executed well for the most part, but just, or rather planned well, but the execution bar was like pretty high, so it was difficult to pull off. I don't think it's mechanics. I think it's more game sense and realizing why something is good instead of just like picking Widow to counter Pharah. You have to understand where Widow needs to be and what she needs from her team in order to make sure that the Pharah is bad. So it's like a bit more nuanced than just X counters Y. And so if we can brush up perhaps on map theory or compositions, could do much better.